And I wanted to get your perspective because, Luke's, he's 10. How are you preparing Luke for all cases, no matter what the outcome is? I'm curious to hear about that.
We are planning for all scenarios. We are definitely preparing him for the reality that he could lose more. He will lose more vision.
Yeah.
There's no scenario where he's not going to lose more vision. Even if the cure got funded today and started to go to clinical trials, that's another whole year
Yeah.
away from starting. So he is actively losing his vision every single day. So we know that that's going to happen, and regardless of any potential therapy that could come or not come, we are preparing him for that eventuality. So, for example, like at this stage in his life, we finally started engaging the school system and some vision support resources to help him get accustomed to navigating, handling different situations. And just starting those vision support resources. But I think as parents, we really are more focused on the mental side of it.
Yeah.
Everything in life is how you react to it. I wish he wasn't losing his vision, but he is. And it's all going to be how he sees it and how he interprets that and reacts to it. So if he doesn't see it as a disability, it won't be. If he has the mental toughness and strength to get through tough situations, he will be able to overcome the inevitable challenges that he is faced with as he kind of navigates that changing environment of him for losing vision and going through that. And it's on us as parents to, be an example for him and try to teach him how to do those things. So I've tried to do things myself that are hard and challenging, and it's like I can't mimic that, and I don't know how to put myself in that situation, but other than just try to teach him how to react to tough situations, and every time that there's a challenge, I try to make it a teaching opportunity for him. And you had a hard time at school with this test, like, okay, let's react to it. How are we gonna view it? Are you going to view a challenge as something to be avoided, or are we going to take it and we're going to build on it and make it a positive and learn from it and grow? So those are all those opportunities that I have as a parent to try to model those situations for him and prepare him. And there's no playbook on this stuff, right? I try to connect with the community and ask for advice and get insight. But at the end of the day, there's not like a parenting playbook on how to raise a child going through this. So it's every day you're questioning yourself on, am I doing the right thing? Is there something else I should be doing? Should I be doing more? Is this going to help him? And so those are those daily doubts and fears and challenges that you go through as a parent in a situation like this. So one of the things that I've asked people in the community, I even got a chance to ask Molly Burke, for advice, like what's something that helped you as a kid or something you wished would have happened for you as a kid. So I ask advice. So I guess I would love to get your input on, what would you suggest? What have you found that's helpful for you, or what would you do differently if you could do it again?
Yeah. I think that's a loaded question, and it's a great question. Because it's difficult for me because my situation is quite different than Luke's in the sense of literal the symptoms and timeline, but also, how it's approached by your family. You have an organization dedicated to it, you're advocating online, and you're not sweeping, RP under the rug, which is what my family did, to be honest with you. It was like my mom had it, was legally blind, couldn't drive, but, it was never talked about. It was very like, almost like the elephant in the room that just wasn't addressed. And I knew I had it. My sister knew she had it, but me and her never talked about it. I mean, we still hardly do. And I didn't really start talking about it openly until I was 27 years old. And I just tried to pretend it didn't exist. And I think that has a lot to do with how I was raised with it, which is fine because, from your approach, you're trying to set, Luke up for success, and you're doing certain things and you're kind of addressing it in a way that's like, I'm not going to make RP the central focus of your childhood, and I'm not going to raise you any differently than I would, without it. I'm not going to love you any differently, et cetera, et cetera. But I think the fact that you're being so open with it is such a good thing for him. I know it's probably stressful for him sometimes. I'm sure he doesn't want to hear about it some days, the same way I didn't as a kid. It kind of was nice that it got ignored for me as a kid, because it kind of made me feel like I didn't have it, and I could kind of pretend. But in the end, that kind of, comes back to sting you, the longer you postpone acknowledging it. And I think as long as you're finding that proper balance of addressing it, talking about it, supporting him about it, but also not making it his identity too, And I know it's a tightrope you're walking on, and how do you kind of strike that balance? But yeah, I think as long as, Luke feels comfortable that when he has a bad vision day or something happens in relation to his vision, he feels open, like he can talk to you about it. And he has you as a resource to help him adapt to it. And he doesn't feel on his own and isolated with his vision loss. I think that's really the best thing you can do, and that would be all I'd have to say is because, it's not that I wasn't supported on my end, but it just wasn't like I said, it just wasn't a conversational topic. And I think that's kind of what made it feel even more like a taboo kind of thing. It made me feel even more like a genetic kind of anomaly, kind of mutant kind of thing, where it's like, different, in a bad way. Whereas now that I'm in this, BVI community, it's like, I know I'm different. I'm admitting that I'm different, but it's not like necessarily a bad thing. And it's all about how you react to it. And it's like, but I wasn't taught any of that. I had to learn it all on my own. And I think what I'm just trying to say is it's nice that you're there as a resource and as kind of guide rails to kind of keep Luke, from not going too far off the deep end one end where he's, going, into a depressive spiral about losing his vision, but he's also not going so far the other way where his whole identity is, RP. So I think as long as you're there to kind of keep them balanced, I think everything will be great. That would be my take on it.
Yeah, thank you. That's great, advice. And I'm inspired by your story and what you've done in terms of, you mentioned the communication part and how, it wasn't communicated, and now you've really taken that to the to the other level where, you communicate about this openly online and you help other people. I mean, I remember, when I was getting this diagnosis and searching for answers and community and connection, I came across you. You were one of the first people that popped up. You have one of the few podcasts on the topic. So seeing people who are out there talking about it, it makes it easier for you to talk about it. It makes it, like you said, a topic that is not to be feared. And it's something that it's a condition. It's not who you are. It's just something that you have, and everybody has something, right? I mean, whether it's depression, anxiety, cancer, vision loss, you name it, like everybody goes through these things. And so having a community to connect with that understands and that you can learn from is, I think, super important. I've learned so much from seeing what other people are talking about and how they're processing it. And then, you know, learning, just being open-minded. And from like the mindset part of it, like these are all things that I fast rewind maybe, 5 years ago, I really didn't have, I don't feel like the skill set that I have now that I've adapted.
Yeah.
I wasn't a person who had any type of, significant mental toughness, ability to handle, these things that life throws at you. And so these are all learned behaviors and traits that people acquire over time. And you described how you've kind of learned and adapted and gained these skills. And I'm learning them as I go as well. And that's really a part of like the life experience is gaining these skills. And I think that what I would tell anybody who's young or in a tough situation is like, most people don't have these skills inherently. They've just picked it up over time through the experiences they've had. Some people have experiences earlier in life, some people have experiences later in life, but they're all learned skills, traits, abilities of how to handle the things that life throws at us. And so I think that feeling of kind of aloneness and fear when you're going through something hard for the first time is tough. But yeah, that's how life goes. Is that you just have to learn these things.